Hello, and welcome to another ATG Quick Tip video. My name is Matt Linn, and today I would like to discuss a method of streamlining the gap between drawing production and specification writing. Traditionally, an architecture firm will design and develop a project predominantly in drawing form. The design is further developed throughout the design development and construction document phases. Ideally, the spec writer would get involved in the design development phase too, but this is rarely the case. This is due to the demanding workload and responsibilities of architects. The specs are typically tacked on a week or two before the final deadline. Sometimes the spec writer will have no involvement with the design up to this point, thus they are asking the project architect and/or project manager a ton of questions to get caught up with everything to hopefully produce a coordinated project manual. All of the information that they're requesting is available in Revit. However, many spec writers out there never dive into the model. So why not automate this information for them? So I would suggest one of two methods, or maybe a combination of both. The first method is by using keynotes. So if I come in, zoom in on a floor plan here and jump to my annotate tab, keynote, material keynote. If I point to the CMU like so, you can see it automatically knows this is spec section 04220. So if I click in the keynote itself, it's reading this text file, which has all the spec sections and then all the spec names. Now this is the out-of-the-box version that comes when you download Revit. You can use this if you want, or you can have one that's tightly coordinated with your specification standard of your firm. This can be anything you want. So for this example, I'm going to use the out-of-the-box version. Okay, so that's reading 04220 from here, and that's the concrete masonry spec section. So how did it know that? If I come in here and go to type properties of this wall, and then look at the structure, this is the material it's pointing to right here, masonry concrete block. And if I open it up, you can see there's the graphics tab, but this is primarily looking at the identity tab. Identity tab is where you can populate some type properties, which can be produced back out to a tag in this example, or you can push them out to a schedule. So here it has the class of concrete, there's the name, and then here's the keynote, 04220. If I hit the ellipses over here, you can see this parameter here, and this is a type parameter. It's reading that same text file we made that produced the tag itself. So those will be coordinated and synced up. That could have been defined while placing the tag, or it could have been defined in the material itself prior to placing the tag. Either way is fine. Okay, so let's take a look at another example. If I come over here, I'm going to grab this floor, which is a floor sanded timber wood finish, and let's look at the type properties on this as well. If I go to edit structure, here's the wood flooring material, and to the identity tab. Now you can see this also has the keynote parameter filled out, which is 09640. If I hit the ellipses, that is the wood flooring spec section. Okay, it also has some additional information filled out here in the type properties. It's got the name, of course, it has to have a name. This is filled out the class, it's filled out the manufacturer. This is a Armstrong Vivero vest. It even has the URL populated as well. So you can see you can add as little or as much information you want to that material. And this is where you can really streamline the information to your spec writer. So if you're coming in and you choose a floor and you have this information because you went and picked it out, go ahead and populate the material itself, and then you can easily automate the process of getting this information to the spec writer, which is what we'll look at now. So we'll say OK to this and OK to this. Okay, so your spec writer can now either actually let's jump back and look at this keynote. Now that we have a keynote here, we are able to come to the view tab and say legends, keynote legend. And you can see it automatically populates with all the keynotes that are in the plan. The keynote value here, which is the spec section, and then the keynote text, which is the spec section name. Now you can see this is limited because it doesn't have all the other parameters that was populated in the materials. and it's only showing the keynotes that are in the project. Now, this would be great checklist towards the end of construction documents to verify you have everything. But in the middle of DD, you probably haven't annotated a ton yet. So in this case, I would recommend producing schedules that populate information from the materials themselves. Okay, so let's do that. I'm going to go to View, Schedule, and this will be a material takeoff. So the difference between a schedule quantity and a material takeoff, this is scheduling Revit elements, whereas this is scheduling Revit materials. And seeing as the materials is where we're populating the information that ultimately needs to get to the spec writer, this is what we want to schedule. So for this example, let's take a look at Windows. And I'm going to call this Specs Windows. And with that, I'll just say OK. Looks like I've already made that. So for this example, I'm going to come in and delete the one that I have already and do it again. I'll say View, Schedule, Material Takeoff, Windows, Specs, Windows. Okay, so from here I can choose the fields that I want. So if you scroll down, there's several fields right here in the middle that start with material : These are the ones you want to schedule because these are the ones that are reading those material properties. So let's throw in the keynote. You can see the keynote is that same value that it was reading that we saw earlier. We'll throw in material name. We'll put in manufacturer, model. We'll throw in URL and comments. Okay, so now we're quickly scheduling this thing. Now, at first, this looks overwhelming and not too helpful for the spec writer, but there are some filters and some sorting and grouping we can do to help out with that. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to adjust some of the sizes of these. For material name, I'm going to change it to 4 inches wide. I'm going to grab these 3 and make these 5 inches wide. And I'll make this 3. Okay, so in addition, I'm going to come into my sorting and grouping, and I want to sort by, I'll sort by the keynote first, and then I'll sort by the material name. So if I say OK, you can see it sorts them like so, but it still populates everything that we have in the model, every single instance. Now, a lot of these are exactly the same, so I'm going to come back into sorting and grouping. And if you uncheck itemize every instance, it will give you 1 row for identical items in that row. So we'll say OK. And now we have information that's really useful to your spec writer. So I'm going to close out of this. And then I would recommend creating a sheet with all of these things. And I can pull this on like that, place it right there. Now in this example, you can see I've already created these schedules for all the categories, which would be a great idea to do in the template itself. And that way you have the information is populated already. And it's really nice because now the spec writer can simply take this and see, okay, the ceiling, if they want to go with Armstrong, Optima. If I want to look at it closer, here's the URL. It even has a little image of it. Same thing, here's the wood floor, there's the image, the URL. So as you're going through selecting these materials in your project, you can automatically just fill that information in the Revit model itself. And at any point, your spec writer could say, all right, I'm ready to start, jumping on this project. And you could simply print out this sheet, and everything that you have to date is ready for him or her to start writing those specs. Moving forward, you could simply use this sheet just as a coordination between you and the spec writer, or perhaps you are the spec writer. Perhaps you're the project manager and the spec writer. In that case, this is a good checklist for you. Moving forward, you could either include this information in the spec and then only use this for coordination, or in your project manual, you could simply say refer to sheet A3 for any of this stuff and print the sheet and include it in the construction document. So that concludes the ATG quick tip video for today. Hope this was helpful to you. Thank you.